Which shoe is better to hoop in? The Nike Kyrie 8 Infinity or the KD14? So today we're going to be putting the newest models from Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant's shoe lines with Nike head to head to see how they compare. But really quick, if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. So starting off with the box and the price, the Kyrie 8s get some Kyrie text inside of that oval pattern. And then it's also going to be like in the middle, you're going to see a sideways 8 or like an infinity sign. His shoe is kind of like adopted both name, like either name for this year's model. Some places have it labeled the Kyrie 8, other places have it the Kyrie Infinity. But, anyway, switching it over to the KD14s, these come in a pretty simple black box with this player logo on top. I mean, really nothing too special going on there. But as for pricing, the Kyrie 8s are going to be retailing for $130, which is the same as last year's Kyrie 7. The KD14s are going to be a little bit above that at $150, so pretty middle of the pack for KDs. And then Kyrie's shoe is going to be middle of the pack to the lower side on the scale. So doing a quick rundown for the appearance on these shoes and starting off with the colorways, today we're checking out the Nike Kyrie 8 Infinity Aluminum versus the KD14 Lime Glow. So before I get into the shoe itself, months ago Kyrie came out saying that he hated his upcoming sneaker and that he just wasn't going to wear it. I mean, all of this was kind of happening around that vaccine controversy time, and I guess that's all kind of starting to get ironed out now a little bit maybe, but I did just want to draw some attention to that to say that Nike must have either like changed up the design or at least gotten him on board, because clearly they did release. But I actually like the look for these. So, I mean, pretty much all of Kyrie's shoes in his line have kind of followed that same mid-top structure. I guess aside from like, the Kyrie 4 lows and some other shoes in his line that are designed to be low specifically. But, with the Kyrie 8s getting more of a curved midsole, I think these fall more in line with the Kyrie 6 than they are going to the Kyrie 7s, because, the Kyrie 7 did have a shark tooth design on that midsole area. But I also like the way this wavy heel design looks on the back. I think it's a pretty clean setup, and it honestly reminds me a lot of the Game 7 Extended Play series. And this specific colorway is going to get an hourglass design look to the tongue. So, I mean, just all around a pretty nice setup. And now looking at the KD14s, Nike added the strap back to Durant's line after not having it there on some of the previous models. I guess, it just hasn't been on there for at least the last few. And honestly, I am glad that they did, because I think the KD13 and the 12, they were just, pretty basic models to me. Those were still solid performing shoes, just, not a lot to look at. And, these aren't going to be anything crazy either. I mean, I guess the upper gets kind of a wavy pattern. The transitions into a pretty cool look around the heel, more of a wavy design back there too. And then you also have a Nike Air bubble on the midsole that gives these a pretty solid look. So, I mean, honestly, I think both of these shoes do look better than their previous models, in my opinion. So now let's look at the materials and the performance side for these shoes and start off with the cushioning for the Kyrie 8s. So these have more of cushioning packed into this Kyrie shoe than we've seen in a minute for his line. It's pretty typical for a Kyrie basketball shoe to have cushioning, either in the front or in the back of the shoe, but this year's Kyrie 8 Infinity is going to get it in both places. You have a zoom unit in the heel, but in the forefoot, these are going to get a zoom strobel setup that is just spring loaded. Like, you can feel it compress with every step and every jump. I mean, it just feels really responsive, and it does protect your foot really well whenever you're landing from a jump. And the cushioning is something that I did knock a little bit on the Kyrie 7, but they did improve it, which is definitely nice. Looking at the KD14s, this is a really solid shoe to play in too. I mean, these are going to feature a full-length air zoom strobel unit that is stitched directly into the upper, and that is designed to keep this shoe soft and responsive. I mean, and go ahead, check both of those boxes right there. And the KD14 is going to have a Cushlon foam midsole too, just like the LeBron 19s and some other shoe lines out there. So, I mean, just a really well-balanced cushioning setup. And the nice thing is you can say that for both of these models. For the materials and the support, the Kyrie 8s go with what most basketball shoes use on the upper now, which is going to be some textiles. And there are lots of benefits to doing this, like, it does keep a shoe lightweight and breathable. And in general, textiles do feel more secure thanks to that plastic. And you're going to get some nicer materials in the back half of the shoe, kind of around the ankle. That black patch is like more of a leather feel. And the support is another nice piece for this Kyrie 8 model. So the upper doesn't give on any like harsh movements, sudden movements, anything like that. Then the black straps are kind of run under and like around the laces. that the laces actually feed through. I mean, those black wings kind of are there to mark out a strap that runs behind your heel, kind of tightens your foot into the shoe, and it even runs forward around your toes just to pull your entire foot into the design. So you can see where that strap begins and where it ends if you follow that blue line kind of along the toe box. So I thought that was a cool piece. But I mean, Kyrie's line has never really struggled with support, and that does continue on here. So for the KD14s, the most noticeable change to the materials is going to come from that strap that was added onto this year. And honestly, I do love the strap on basketball shoes, so I was a fan of that. The upper is going to be made out of a multi-layer mesh setup with some added thickness in certain areas to kind of keep your foot in place. And just like the Kyrie 8s, the support is definitely going to be nice here. It's very solid. The upper is going to be a little bit more firm, so you definitely don't have to worry about that shifting on you. And the strap is also going to be there to tighten your foot down a little bit more too. And then both of these shoe models are going to be pretty light and easy to move around in. The Kyrie 8s are the lighter shoe though, weighing in at 400 grams for a size 10.5. And the KD14s are going to weigh in at 432 grams for the same size. And you can kind of get that same feel whenever you're playing in these. The Kyrie 8s are a little bit smoother to move around in, just not by much. To finish off with traction, Nike went away from the computer-generated pattern for this year's Kyrie 8, and while it still is data-driven, it just has a better flow in my opinion. This is going to be closer to a traditional herringbone setup after last year's Kyrie 7, which is just a little bit too sporadic as far as the pattern. These almost do look exactly like the Dame 7 Extended Play series, just to bring that back in as far as the traction pattern. But something about this setup is that the outsole does extend out a little bit more from the inside pattern on here, where you see that lightning bolt design. It just protrudes out a little bit. Just thought that was different. But I did buy a pair of these with an XDR outsole, which is just a more durable rubber, so I am excited to test that out, see if they last a little longer for me. But the traction isn't going to be anything special on these, but it is going to be better than last year's model. And then now for the KD14s, these are going to have a similar look to last year's traction setup, just with those oval patterns on the bottom. And those are going to handle your side to side or your lateral coverage. And then the rest of the design is going to handle your front to back movements. And this is honestly one of the better shoes, or one of the better designs you can get for traction out there. I mean, they just grip the floor really well. I haven't struggled on any court as far as traction goes in the bite, so that's been really nice. But to finish off with sizing, both of these shoes are good for the length, and I'd say both of them probably run a little bit narrow. It's nothing too crazy, but I mean, I would say neither one of them is going to be a wide fit for sure. So for the final ratings, and starting off with the appearance, I do like both of these models more so than their previous shoes in their line. So I'm not going to split hairs here. I'm just going to keep that section as a tie. For cushioning, initially I would have guessed that it would have been the KD14 to win pretty easily, but some really nice improvements were made to this year's Kyrie 8 that I was a fan of. So it is enough for me to keep that section as a tie. As for the materials, I mean, both shoes have some extra touches. You have the wings that kind of lock your foot in on the Kyrie 8. I mean, the KD14s are also going to get that strap added on there. So, I mean, yet again, I'm just going to stick with the tie on these. And then looking at the support, the Kyrie shoes do a really solid job for what it's working with, especially with a thinner material used to kind of help keep the shoe light. But the KD14s hold up really solid for the support too. And personally, I think they give your foot a little bit more of a safer and secure feel just because the upper is a little bit more firm. So I am going to slightly lean that way. And then last for traction, I'm definitely a fan of the Kyrie 8 line getting a little bit better here, but it's not really enough to keep pace with the KD14, which has a really sticky feel and just grips the floor well on pretty much every court that I've played on. So, I mean, this one is tough. I could see it go either way, but I am going to give a slight edge to the KD14 as the better shoe to hoop in. There just isn't anything about this shoe that I don't like, and there isn't anything to be worth putting in a negative light. The KD14 is just a really well-balanced shoe. And then the Kyrie 8s, I mean, they are a step up in my opinion from the Kyrie 7 for sure. I'm not quite bought in on the traction yet fully, but I mean, it's still a great shoe to hoop in. So if you're interested in buying one or both of these shoes and you want to support our channel, we do have an affiliate link in the description that does give us a little commission that just goes back into reviewing more shoes. So feel free to check that out. But that wraps up this performance comparison. Until next review, I'm Ed from Shoewear. Peace.